obviously the Scottish Government don't have the big powers over energy and climate change that are held at Westminster, but they have had environmental powers. They have been able to use some of the powers that we do have to do things. What do you think are the Scottish Government's biggest successes or greatest actions in terms of taking this issue forward?
Oh, look, I mean, I have to say, I mean, I do get a little bit concerned about sort of folk banging on about, us being world leading in legislation and targets. We are pretty good in Scotland, but obviously climate change is a global thing and we all have to work together on it. I think in a way what Scotland is missing most is in not having our own voice to take part in the discussions around the world about what needs done. So, we won't have a place at the discussions in November at COP26. It will be
That's
the president designate.
That's despite declaring a climate emergency ahead of anyone else. And
I know.
And despite
we were the first person. Sorry.
Yeah, carry on.
No, first country in the UK to declare a climate emergency. We've got some of the most ambitious legislative emissions reductions targets in the world. We've halved our greenhouse gas emissions since 1990. Apparently, we're second only to Sweden in terms of our emissions reductions there. We're enormous. We are actually world renowned. We are world renowned for having underpinned our net zero targets with a legislative commitment. It's not the same as having a woolly aim. This is actually something that has been underpinned by legislation. It's a really important development. We have got a legislative commitment to a just transition, which was, again, a world-leading development. And, our aim is to ensure that no one is left behind. We've seen in the last manifesto for the SNP before this 2021 election, further commitments of extra money to go into that transition fund, because that is so important for us in Scotland particularly.
And all this is in the background of working in a fixed budget that we have. We can't borrow. We don't have the borrowing power, so we have to work within a fixed budget. You were talking about green homes and insulation earlier, and I think we've got a record of insulating 4 times as many homes as England.
Well, even when you look at nature-based solutions to global warming and the amount of forestry, the amount of tree planting that we've put in, I mean, frankly, it puts England to shame.
85% of the UK's tree planting. So all these are actions. All these are actions taken, with very, very limited powers, from it. And I think.
But the thing that for me, a really key thing is control of energy policy, because we could choose not to invest in nuclear. We could choose to invest in fantastic technologies like wave and wind, and further invest in nature-based solutions, because I'm a big fan of those. I think sometimes we overlook those in favor of, zhuzhy kind of newer technology like direct air carbon capture, which is still in its early days of development, which seems to capture a lot of attention from politicians and journalists. I mean, I know Dominic Cummings was a big fan of that and was lobbying hard to try and get a lot of extra investment into it. But, there are nature-based solutions, peat bog restoration, tree planting, working with our farmers to make their, make agricultural activities far more carbon retentive. I mean, there are many options other than just throwing. Not to say that we shouldn't be looking at it, but
throw money at nuclear and other technologies. And of course, if we had the powers in Scotland, we could make a menu of choices. So we could do some on, we could pursue carbon capture, we could pursue these nature-based solutions, and we could choose what is right for the mix that we have. Deidre,
and base it on the conditions of the country. Our country. Look at hydro pump storage. This is something that we've got enormous potential for in Scotland. But, again, there seems to be a blockage from the UK government. I mean, obviously, carbon capture storage is very much to the forefront again. But now, there were the 2 competitions from Westminster trying to find a proposal that had these sort of carbon capture storage technology competitions.
Yeah.
And it cost something like £140 million each time the St Fergus plant and that area were looking like they were going to win, and then the whole thing got pulled.
That's
and
right,
now now things have developed sufficiently down in ports in England that we're operating in real sort of competition with them for the next announcement of funding, whenever that
when we could be
the next
pressing
chunk
ahead,
is going to be announced.
when we could be pressing ahead with these things.